Hello, good morning children. Today in this video I am going to explain class 7 history 4th chapter the Mughal Empire. Yesterday I have said about the kings, the Mughal kings and their kingdoms, how many kingdoms they have occupied, and afterwards the relations, to maintain relations with Rajputs, they have married the Rajput daughters, and some of them they obeyed the Mughals rules, but some of them they haven't disobeyed and they continued their fights with Mughals. Now after this, what were the consequences of these marriages and all those? Now you will see. Let's see. As the empire expanded to encompass different regions, the Mughals recruited diverse bodies of people. So, when the kingdom expanded, they have to take care of the kingdoms and the territories. The Mughals appointed different people. From a small nucleus of Turkish nobles, they expanded to include Iranians. So, here they have appointed Turkish people, and then Iranians, Turkish, Iranians, Indian Muslims, Afghans, Rajputs, Marathas, okay, and other groups. So, from all these kingdoms, they have appointed some people. From all the groups, they have appointed some groups to control the territories. Those who joined Mughal service were enrolled as Mansabdar. So, from all these groups who joined in Mughal service, they were called as Mansabdars. In the administrative system, you should keep in mind. In the administrative system, they have appointed Mansabdars. Okay, next. The term Mansabdar refers to an individual who holds a Mansab. Here, Mansabdar means the person who holds the Mansab. Mansab means here a particular, some measurable land. Mansab holds a Mansab, meaning a position or rank. Mansabdar is a rank. Okay. It was a grading system used by the Mughals to fix rank, salary and military responsibilities. So, here Mansabdar is a rank. By this rank only they will fix salary, rank and military responsibilities also. Okay, so with this rank, these Mansabdars, they were to their grade, they can fix rank, salary and military responsibilities to the Mansabdars. Rank and salary were determined by a numerical value called Jat. The higher the Jat, the more prestigious was the noble's position in court and the larger his salary. So, here this salary and rank was fixed on the basis of Jat. Okay, the more Jat he belongs to, that much salary he will get and the responsibility also. Higher the rank and higher the salary. His position also increases and at the same time salary also will be given more. The Mansabdar's military responsibilities required him to maintain a specified number of Sawar or cavalrymen. So, he has in the cadre of this military responsibilities, they have to maintain some military force. What are they? Cavalry. Sawar or cavalry. Sawar means the soldiers who goes on horsebacks, and cavalry means the people who goes on by walk. The Mansabdar brought his cavalrymen for review, got them registered, their horses branded, and then received money to pay them as salary. Here, military responsibility is not it's a easy work, it's a very difficult task. the savar. Savar means I told you the soldiers who had horseback on goes horseback. So here the horses also they have to these horses also not normal ones, branded horses, and the people also they have to register. People also registered, and afterwards with branded horses, and afterwards if they were approved, then only their salaries will be given to Mansabdars. Then Mansabdars will give to these Savar people. Mansabdars received their salaries as revenue assignments called Jagirs, which were somewhat like iktas. So here Mansabdar salary. Mansabdar will give salary to military people. That means Savar and Kalrimen. So what about Mansabdar's salary? Mansabdar's salaries will be given. He will be allotted some land. Okay, on that land that is called as Jagir. Okay, that is called as Jagir. That is called as Jagir. That means some particular land will be given. From that land, he has to collect revenue. Okay, that revenue this Mansabdar can take as salary. But in that revenue only he has to give this. He has to maintain military expeditions also. But unlike Muktis, most Mansabdars did not actually reside in or administer their Jagirs. But it is not compulsory to them to reside in those Jagirs only. Here, Iqtidars and Muktis, what they have to do? They have to settle in those places and they have to collect. But here, Mansabdars no need to stay in that particular place. From other places, from other towns or kingdoms, capital cities also, they can stay there and they can collect revenue from their Jagirs. From their Jagirs, they can collect revenue and they can take that money as salaries and they can spend that money for their military expeditions also. They only had rights to the revenue of their assignments, which was collected for them by their servants, while the Mansabdars themselves served in some other part of the country. So, they can use like that. In Akbar's reign, these Jagirs were carefully assessed so that their revenues were roughly equal to the salary of the Mansabdar. So, all those maintaining tasks during Akbar's reign, they have assessed very well. That means now and then they checked how much revenue they are collecting and how much salaries they are paying to military expeditions. That means soldiers, and what income he is getting as a revenue, and that means that equally balanced. But Akbar had made that, but the remaining others, his successors, they haven't checked these assessments. By Aurangzeb's reign, this was no longer the case and the actual revenue collected was often less than the granted sum. So, Akbar's time, they have maintained carefully and it was success there. But during Aurangzeb's reign, it was a failure task. There was also a huge increase in the number of Mansabdars, which meant a long wait before they received a Jagir. So, by Aurangzeb's time, he has appointed more Mansabdars and the Jagirs were less and the income revenue was less and their salaries became very less. So, here the problem came. These and other factors created a shortage in the number of Jagirs. As a result, many Jagirdars tried to extract as much revenue as possible while they had a Jagir. So, while observing this situation, the Mansabdars who are having these lands, these Jagirs, what they have done? They have accessed, they have collected more revenue. They collected more revenue from the peasants. They collected more revenue from the peasants. Why? We don't know whether how much long this Jagir will be on our hands. So, while it was in our hand only, we should earn so much money like that. These Mansabdars thought, and what they have done, they have collected more revenue from the peasants. Aurangzeb was unable to control these developments in the last years of his reign, and the peasantry therefore suffered tremendously. So Aurangzeb failed to control these Mansabdars. That's why the peasants suffered tremendously, horribly they suffered, because whatever the crop they are cultivating, they getting on that crop, the earnings. If the Mansabdars collecting so this much revenue means how the people, how the peasants will live, how they will succeed with their livelihood. So it was that's why, as Aurangzeb got failed to control these revenue assessments, the peasants were horribly suffered a lot. Next, Japt and Jamindars. That was the situation of Mansabdars. Now, Japt and Jamindars. Okay, let's see. The main source of income available to Mughal rulers was tax on the produce of the peasantry. So, as I said earlier, here this revenue only on the peasantry, on the farmers, whatever the tax they are collecting, that is only the main source of income. In most places, peasants paid taxes through the rural elites, that is, the headman or the local chieftain. So, here collecting tax means going to every peasant and collecting, not like that. One particular village means the village head will collect all the taxes from the farmers and he will hand over to Mansabdars. Like that it happened. Chiefs or otherwise tribal group means tribal chiefs or these Jamindars. They collect the revenue and they will hand over to Mansabdars. The Mughals used one term, Jamindars, to describe all intermediaries, whether they were local headmen of villages or powerful chieftains. Here, the Mughals used this term, Jamindars. Here, these Jamindars are the mediators. Why they were mediators? Because they will collect revenue from the peasants, farmers, tribal people, and they will hand over to king, emperor. That's why all these intermediaries, in between the people, whoever, whatever may be, the Mughals gave the term, the word to Jamindars. Okay. Akbar's revenue minister, Todarmal, carried out a careful survey of crop yields, prices and areas cultivated for a 10-year period, 1570 to 1580. Okay. Akbar's minister, Todarmal, 1570 to 1580. Okay, up to this year, I have said Akbar have done this revenue assessment very carefully and he got success. By how it was successful for him? Because he has a capable minister. Who was he? Finance minister Todarmal. With the help of him, Todarmal, Akbar has done very carefully these assessments and it was success to that person. On the basis of this data, tax was fixed on each crop in cash. So, what he has done, he has measured all the crops, the measure, the size, the amount they are getting on that and the revenue they fixed. So, it was the clear data was available there. That's why Todarmal was capable to access that revenue. Each province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. This revenue system was known as Japt. That's why that means measuring the land and fixing the revenue and collecting that revenue. The total system was called as Japt. That was the word given as Japt. Okay. This revenue system was known as Japt. It was prevalent in those areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land and keep very careful accounts. This was not possible in provinces such as Gujarat and Bengal. So, Todarmal has done maximum on all the territories, but it was failed in two places. What are they? Gujarat and Bengal. In Gujarat and Bengal, it was failed. Okay, Gujarat and Bengal, it was failed. In some areas, the Jamindars exercised a great deal of power. The exploitation by Mughal administrators could drive them to rebellion. Sometimes, Jamindars and peasants of the same caste allied on rebelling against Mughal authorities. So, here in Gujarat and in Bengal, what they have done, whatever these Jamindars and others, they have exercised more power and what they have done, they started a rebellion on Mughal Empire. They said we will not pay revenue. They started rebellion. Okay, they said why should we pay to Mughal Empire? Why should we pay revenue to Mughal Empire? This is our places, our kingdoms, our crops. That's why we will not. That's why they got rebellion. These peasant revolts challenged the stability of the Mughal Empire from the end of the 17th century. So, at the end of the 17th century, these rebellions rose in, and the Mughal Empire's stability came into a question. Next, Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari. Akbar ordered one of his close friends and courtiers, Abul Fazl. What was the name of the person? Abul Fazl. So, in all these Mughal kings, we can say a good administrator means, for example, that person is none other than Akbar. Okay. So, his friend, one of his friend, Abul Fazl. Okay, what he has done with him? See, to write a history of his reign. So, Akbar asked his friend to write a history of his reign, how he is ruling the country. What are the administrative measurements, principles, how to rule, how to collect revenue, all these things. Akbar asked Abul Fazl to write a history. Abul Fazl wrote a 3-volume history of Akbar's reign titled Akbarnama. So, by accepting his wish, he has written, Abul Fazl written Akbarnama. What was the name of the book? Akbarnama. It contains 3 volumes. Okay, three parts. Okay. The first volume dealt with Akbar's ancestors. Okay, so in these 3 volumes, this is the title of the book, Akbarnama. First volume deals with ancestors. That means forefathers. Ancestors. That means his fathers, grandfathers, like that. Okay, his ancestors. And the second volume deals with recording the events of Akbar's reign. Recorded the events. Okay, in the second value, whatever happened during the Akbar's reign, the events that recorded in second volume. And the third volume is the Ain-e-Akbari. Ain-e-Akbari. That is Ain-e-Akbari. It deals with Akbar's administration, household. Okay, administration. It deals with administration, household. Okay, administration, household, army, the revenues, and the geography of the empire, and the geography of his empire. So everything he asked his friend Abul Fazl to mention all these matters in his book. What was the title of the book? Akbarnama. So see children, Akbar asked his friend Abul Fazl. Abul Fazl, he is one of his minister also. One of his minister. Whose minister? Okay, Akbar's minister. he asked Abul Fazl to write a history of his reign. So he has written Akbarnama. Okay, Akbarnama. Akbarnama contains 3 volumes. First volume deals with his ancestors, Akbar's ancestors, that means forefathers. And the second volume deals with the events which were happened during the Akbar's reign, that he asked him to record in the book. And the third one is Ain-e-Akbari. This Ain-e-Akbari deals with the administration, household, army, the revenue, and the geography of his kingdom. Everything, that means whatever it may be, whatever it is, everything Akbar asked to record, so that the next generation people also, they can use this book and rule the country, like that Akbar thought, and he asked his friend to write this history. It also provides rich details about the traditions and culture of the people living in India. And here in this book, not only this, the culture of the people, how they lifestyles, everything he mentioned. The most interesting aspect about the Ain-e-Akbari is its rich statistical details about things as diverse as crops, yields, prices, wages, and revenues. What are the diversities about these crops, cultures, and then yields? Okay, how much, by what time, with what crop they are getting, how much yields, how much crop they are getting, how much, what are the prices by the time, grains, and wages, that means salaries, what are the salaries to these mansabdars, jamindars, and soldiers, like thing. And revenues, how much revenue they have collected for one particular crop, one land, in which place, what type of land is there, what type of earning they are getting, and that how much revenue they fix, like that. Everything he has asked his friend to mention in Akbarnama. So we can say that Akbarnama is a valuable and a very special gift to next generations. Next, a closer look Akbar's policies. Akbar's policies, I think we can learn in the next class. I hope children you understood this content. Okay, is it clear? Thank you. Have a nice day.